Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar presentation, Salesforce.com and EPM Live. We are better together. We do have a few logistics to cover this morning before we get started. Everyone will be muted for the duration of the presentation. However, should you have any questions, I will be monitoring the chat module, so please feel free to chat with me there if you have any questions. This webinar is being recorded and will be distributed later today along with any of the PDU information. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to EPM Live Solution Consultant, Matthew Willey.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Matthew Willey, a Solution Consultant with EPM Live. I've worked very in-depth with the product team on this particular tool, this particular integration to help get it to where it is today. And we're very happy to bring it to our clients, and we're hoping that you all like it as well. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and watch a quick little video here, but I'll be just talking while it's going just to give you an idea of kind of what's going on. So built the Salesforce integration for a few different reasons. One is your sales team, they go and they sell these things, right, and it becomes a project most likely, and we do some work. And a lot of times salespeople are still engaged with the client after the sales to help build relationships and such. So basically EPM Live is feeding information into Salesforce so that they can really get that, keep in touch with what's going on with their clients and such. So you can see in the demonstration here, EPM Live is kind of the engine on the back, and it's pushing data into Salesforce. And we can push in things like tasks and issues and budgets and cost planning and resource planning, portfolio analysis. You can even pass timesheet hours back in so that salespeople can see what's going on, as well as management can see at the account level what's going on. So the projects have actual costs, and we can roll those back to the accounts, and so on and so forth. So through this connection, there's lots of different things we can do, and we're going to look at those today. But really the main goal is to bring that sales team together with your project team, right? Help get some synergy between the two teams, as there is a lot of communication that needs to go back and forth, and this really helps to automate that communication and make it a little bit easier to work together. So with that said, let's go ahead and see it actually in action. So from a technical perspective, the way it works is we have a tool called Quick Connect, which we built an integration app for, which is the Salesforce integration app. And that allows you to connect right in, and we'll look at that later, how it actually connects up and such. We're going to start off with really more of how it works and how it looks within Salesforce and within EPM Live. So right now I'm in Salesforce. I'm in my normal sales app here. So I can see things like leads and accounts and contacts and so on and so forth. One of the things that you can add into Salesforce, though, is what we call the EPM Force area or app. So now we're bringing into Salesforce things that are inherently in EPM Live, things like portfolios, projects, tasks, issues, and then there's a set of reports and so on and so forth. That you can see around these different types of things. So I can start to look at in Salesforce, my different project costs, how much work's being spent on these projects, all the, basically all the information that's within EPM Live. We're bringing it all here into Salesforce, and it actually does link to an account. So, for instance, as your project's going, we'll go ahead and look at a project here. As your project's going, the actual costs are building up. We have budget numbers. You might have some ROI numbers. Whatever you're calculating in EPM Live from a project management perspective can be actually rolled back to the account, and we'll look at that, how that looks there as well. But the other thing it brings is that, it allows you to use any of the EPM Live tools within Salesforce as well. So, I'm working in Salesforce. That's where I'm used to working. I go to the project, and maybe I want to see what resources are working on this particular project, that I've been involved with, or I want to look at the project schedule. Maybe I need to get a date from my client or something like that. You can even do comments right from here on the project, which is going to, comment to the project manager and so on and so forth. So lots of different things you can do. Basically, the way it works is we put these buttons in here. So for instance, let's say I want to do a comment. I can click on the comments, and it's going to open up another little window here. And it's going to log me into EPM Live, and it's actually allowing me to comment on this particular project. So you're taking, we're basically adding in all the EPM Live features into Salesforce. So for instance, now I want to comment on this particular project back to the project manager because I need to know what's going on with this project so I can have that understanding and relate it to the client. I can say, hey, what's going on? So it really just helps to integrate the two teams together, right? So that's one feature there. Another feature would be like the resource planner. I could open up the resource planner here. If, maybe my team is used to working in here. I want to open up the resource planner and I want to see who's working on this project and how much they're doing and who or what roles. I can come in and I can see those types of information and such. And then the next part of this is one, you can get to all this information and you can interact with it right here from Salesforce without having to log into another system and go back and forth, and that creates confusion and so on and so forth. But the other thing is that all of this information is here and we can actually roll it back to the account. For instance, issues. If there's any issues going on with this particular account, I'm going to know because I know what projects are going on for the account. And I'd be able to come in here and look at all the issues for this particular account, right? We can go in and see all the different issues and look into the details. And so it really just helps, complete that communication stream. I'm going to go ahead and switch here back to my sales community. Oops, there we go. So if I go into, for an instance, an account, inherently in Salesforce, accounts are more just containers for all of your contacts and all of your opportunities and things like that. But I'll open up one of my particular accounts here. Let's say Pool Inc. There's other data that we've added in that we're able to get out of EPM Live. Things like budget. What's the budget for this account as a total? So maybe there's 3 projects going on for this account. What's the total budget for that? And then I can look at the actual costs. And now from a management perspective, I can start to see what's the total amount of dollars that we're actually making on this, right? We know how much we spent to sell it. Now we know how much it's actually costing us to implement what we sold. And when we bring that all up to the account level, we can start to figure out and have more visibility into which accounts are our most profitable accounts, which ones are giving us the most ROI. We can start to look at order totals and invoice totals and remaining to invoice. I can see my number of active projects, so on and so forth. Counts of active issues, overdue issues, right? So it's just kind of helping to complete this whole loop here. So for a second, I'm going to go ahead and jump into EPM Live and show you how this all kind of comes together, where this data is actually coming from and being derived from. So I'm going to open up our site here. So for instance, all of the project data and such is coming out of the projects community here within EPM Live. And these projects within EPM Live are all linked to accounts and so on and so forth. The issues are all driving out of here. So your project team can work out of EPM Live or they can work out of Salesforce. It's really up to you and your user experience and what people are used to currently today. But the sales team is probably familiar with Salesforce, so they're going to be in there, and they're not going to want to move or go to 2 different systems, right? So we're working in here, we're updating project status, we're putting in issues, we're sending invoices and all these different types of things, and that data is coming from here and pushing out to Salesforce, but it can actually be a 2-way sync, so it can come back as well. So when that issue goes over there, now the salesperson can comment on that issue and say, hey, what's going on with this? Is there anything I can help with? And that comes back into EPM Live, and I get my notification in my email, right? So it really helps to tie it all together. The other thing is that within EPM Live, there's it's really our professional services app. Part of that is a sales community that gets created. So that has things in it like leads, accounts, contacts, opportunities. So on the other end of it, you can bring all that information from Salesforce back into EPM Live, all of the inherent Salesforce information, so that your project team has an idea of what's coming down the pipeline as well. So it kind of goes both ways, right? So I can see this opportunity is about to close or it did close. And then from there, I can actually convert an opportunity into a project either from Salesforce or from EPM Live. So I'm going to jump back to Salesforce real quick, and I'm going to go into opportunities. So there's kind of this other connection here. When we win an opportunity, most likely a project or multiple projects are going to start. So I can come in, I'll look at one of my opportunities here. Let's say, for instance, this one. Once this opportunity gets set to closed won, it's triggered off of the stage here. Basically, when it gets set to close one, and then you save, that's what's actually going to create the project over in, both in EPM Live and in Salesforce, since we have that, together. So it's just one more way it brings both of those teams together. So we don't have to send out this email and figure out what's going on. All we do is set this to close one. It creates the project. It notifies people, that there's a new project sitting there, right? And we go and we start to assign it to people. So it helps, really the sales process and the project process, not only during the execution process help communicate, but it even helps you get from the sales to the execution of the project. And then the great thing about this is, the data is there, right? It's in both places, and we can sync it back and forth, and we can do workflows of this nature so that we can push things around. If there's anything other in particular, other connections that you're trying to make, etc., those types of things can be definitely done as well. So it's really a great tool on both sides. On the other side, a few more things. So meaning if I go back into EPM Live, if I go back into EPM Live, I'm bringing in from Salesforce all my leads, my accounts, my contacts, my opportunities, right? And with that comes a whole slew of reports that we have out of the box. So now within EPM Live, right, you can take advantage of all of our other features as well. So all the different dashboards that you can build within EPM Live so that your project team can see that. As well as there's a whole set of SQL reporting services reports which aren't available in Salesforce. So if I come in here, I can look at all the different reports available, lots and lots of different reports. So for instance, plan versus actual cost by account is a report that we add in out of the box when you use this particular connection here. So I can start to see at the account level what's going on instead of just at the project level here within EPM Live, right? So at the end of the day, if your goal is to bring these two tools together and send the data back and forth, the big highlight is one, communication. It helps to flow that communication between the two teams. It really brings it together. And big point number two is that you can roll up all this data from the actual projects to the accounts so that at the account level you can see what's going on, right? What's our total budget for this account for? What's the total actual costs, et cetera, right? So it's really a great tool that we're excited about, and we've had a lot of excitement from some of our existing clients as well as new clients looking into this already. So we're definitely proud to show it. So with that said, that's kind of how it works, how it looks from the more of the business side. I'm now going to look a little bit at the technical side of how easy it is to set this up, right? Traditionally, integrations take a lot of effort to set up and get the data to go back and forth between the two different systems, and there's a lot of code there, and if you want to change something, now you have to have your developer recode something. So our goal with this was to make it all very easily manageable and easy to set up within a short period of time. And then if you want to change something as well, it's all right within a user interface. You can just make updates and changes to the functionality of this particular integration. So the case that I'm going to show is on the issues list here. One of the things I showed was that the issues in EPM Live are being synced between Salesforce and EPM Live back and forth. So in order to do this, I just need to sign in as an administrator. This would be more of a site collection administrator function. So I am going to sign in as my administrator here. And open that up. So now that I'm logged in as the administrator, I can go in and I can start playing around with this and doing these types of things, right? You don't need to even go on the server to do anything or anything like that. It's all right here within the site, so it makes it really easy to do. So all I do is if I want to integrate the issues list with an issues object in Salesforce, and I can do this with any of my different lists here in SharePoint, right, in EPM Live. I can sync any of these here over to Salesforce. And the way I do that is I just go into Settings, List Settings. Go ahead and open this up. And then there's a new tab here. So in order to do this, you have to be on EPM Live 4.4 or greater. 4.4.1 just came out, and I believe it will be released to on-site customers at the beginning of next week, Monday. So you'd probably grab the newest version there. And I'll go ahead and go into my integration tab. And then you can see here I already have an integration set up. But basically, the way it works is you hit add, and another cool thing is you can actually add multiple integrations to each list. So if I wanted to connect to another system and kind of use EPM Live as the center between those two systems, you could do that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and hit add a new integration here. And basically the way it works is when this comes up, you choose Salesforce here. And when I hit Salesforce, it's going to start walking me through some other screens. It's going to ask for a username and login and so on and so forth. Because I already have one set up, I'm just going to show you what those screens look like through the one that I have set up. But basically, once you pick that, then it's going to take you to this connection page here. And you put in your username, you put in your password, and then you're going to need a security token out of Salesforce. And keep in mind, everything I'm going through here is all documented as well. So if you did want to do this on your own, we do have documentation to support that, or we'd be able to help you with it. But basically, you would get that security token out of Salesforce. That's just used for security purposes. You can even connect to sandbox sites if you choose to. If you have a Salesforce sandbox that you want to test around and play around with before you actually connect it to your production site, you can do that. So then you put in that information, you hit save, and that's going to go out and connect to Salesforce. And once it has that connection, it's good. Now you can start to choose all of your different settings and figure out how this is actually going to work. So we've tried to make this as configurable as possible, but while still easy to set up. So we give you lots of choices and checkboxes here of how you want this integration to work. For instance, do you want the data to sync back and forth, live in real time? So as I put in an issue in EPM Live, it automatically shows up in Salesforce maybe a second or two later, and the opposites. So you can choose if you want it live outgoing from EPM Live and live incoming to EPM Live. Or you can do it on a timed basis. Maybe every night I want this to run outgoing from every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday or something like that. The time thing is really more for a performance feature. So for instance, if you have a lot of data that's transferring back and forth, you might not want it to happen in real time. You might want to time it and say only during the middle of the night when not too many people are in the system. But it's pretty good about that either way. The next thing here is deletion. So this is trying to establish really what's the system of record, right? So as far as deletion, if I delete an item in EPM Live, do I want it to delete in Salesforce? And the opposite, if I delete an item in Salesforce, do I want it to delete in EPM Live? So you have some choices here, and you choose the checkboxes accordingly. And then the same thing with addition. If I add an item in EPM Live, do I want that to show up over in Salesforce? And if I add it in Salesforce, do I want it to show up in EPM Live? The last thing here, you're just picking basically the object in Salesforce that you're mapping to, which would be the issues object in Salesforce. And then user mapping between the two systems. So it has to understand that when if this issue is assigned to Matthew Willie in EPM Live, when it goes over to Salesforce, it needs to know who it's going to assign that to. So it would be Matthew Willie in Salesforce. And it does that based on the email address. The email address is kind of your unique identifier in both systems, although it is configurable so that you could use some sort of other user ID or such. So once you pick how you want the integration to work, the last step is really just to pick which fields in Salesforce go into which fields in EPM Live. So which field is going to be the ID field, so it knows that this item, even if we change the name of this field, or like say the title. We change the title of this issue. The way it's still going to know in Salesforce that that's the same item and not try to create another item is by the ID. So you do some mappings here of how we recognize which is which. And then these are actually your column mappings. So for instance, in the issues list I have in EPM Live, I have a description field. And then in Salesforce, these are all of my different fields in my issues list over there. I have a description field as well. So I choose that. We're now mapped. And this just helps with, if, for instance, maybe in Salesforce it's called issue description. In EPM Live it's called description. It gives you the option to map these fields to each other. Even if they have different names and such, you can pick and choose how which, if you want the description to flow to whatever in Salesforce and back and forth and so on and so forth. So really this is just a one-time setup. You come in, you make all of these choices here, and then once you hit save it, it's going to start working. So it's really very easy to set up. There's no code necessary, right? You don't need one of our developers to come write any code unless you wanted to do anything specifically custom outside of what we already provide, but there's really a lot there already provided. So through that small amount of configuration and maybe some, requirements gathering to figure out exactly how we want this to work and what data we want to transfer back and forth and from where to where, that type of thing. It's literally, 10 minutes or so to come in and set up that integration once all of that is figured out, once you have a good plan. So with that said, that's really all you have to do, and then now you have this data passing back and forth. We bring together our sales team with our project team, which is a big struggle for many companies. We allow you to get that higher level roll-up of data at the account level to figure out what's going on both sides. And all together, it's a really good connection between those two teams. It really definitely helps. We're actually in the process of doing it here at EPM Live. We're integrating our company EPM Live portal with a Salesforce portal for our Salesforce team, and it seems to be going pretty well, and we're hoping that it's going to help with that as well. So the last thing that I'd like to show here briefly is that if you want a little bit more information about this and you'd like to do some reading and such, you can go to epmlive.com. There's a few different places that you can do this. One, you can just search for Salesforce. And I'll show you there's lots of different blogs and articles and such here that you can read about the new Salesforce integration app that we have released, as well as if you go to apps. It's kind of a nice place you can go, and our Salesforce app is towards the top here. You can hit Learn More. The video that I showed earlier, you can watch that video from here. There's some screenshots of some of the different things I want, so if you want to show this to anyone else and things like that, it's definitely a good place to come in so you can read the overview and the features and requirements and so on and so forth for the app here. But all in all, I think it's a great tool, and I hope that everyone agrees. So I want to thank everyone for coming today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. As always, you can go sign up for a trial if you'd like to, or you can send us an email, however you request a demo or whatever it might be. If you want to look a little bit more deeply into this or any of the other features of EPM Live, we would be happy to do that for you. And thank you all for coming out today. And we'll talk to you again in another week, I think is our next webinar. All right. Cool.